And so when I work with people, they typically end up understanding much clearer where they want to go. And then we map out the strategy that helps them to get there.
Okay.
And then we boost their authority so that they can become the expert in their field.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson, and I'm back with another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. This is the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, it's an absolute pleasure to be here to continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. Welcome to episode 222 of the podcast, where we'll hear from growth architect and business coach Beate Chalette. She works with visionaries and thought leaders to help them grow their authority and scale their impact. Growing your authority in your chosen field is huge, because once you've been recognized as an authority, more people will turn to you for whatever it is that you're offering. Really is a great chat. Beate is direct and straightforward. Her approach is fantastic, and I am certain that you'll all appreciate what she has to share. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Beate Chalette. Enjoy. Hey, Beate, thank you for joining me today here on the Audacious Living Podcast. I'm always so appreciative of individuals coming and spending some of their time and hanging out like this. So I thank you for doing this.
Well, how can I miss an opportunity like this, Audley?
I hear you.
I mean, who am I to say no to you?
Oh man, oh, so kind. Oh boy, bless you, bless your heart. Well, again, I am appreciative of you doing this. Here on this podcast, we really encourage the spirit of audacity and as a way of moving from sort of where you are in life to that next stage, that next level, if you will. And why I think having you on is such a great fit, because as the growth architect, you very much believe in that idea of moving beyond from where you were to where you can go to, or living up to your potential and all of these things. And so again, it's great having you here because of that. And maybe as a starting point, we can kind of get you to discuss the work that you do and how you essentially help people to grow as a growth architect.
Yes. Well, first, I want to actually start with a quote that I always give. And my quote is, resilience is the audacity to not give up. So that is right aligned with the spirit of our conversation. So my name is Beate Chalette. I'm known as a growth architect. I work with visionaries and thought leaders, and I help them to grow their authority and scale their impact. And so what that means is I like people that are a little bit colorful, maybe not conforming, that might be a little crazy. They may have really big ideas. They've been told they're nuts, that'll probably never works. And I help them to build the strategy, systems, workflows, and processes around their ideas. And what people often misunderstand about me is they think that because I have a German accent and it's like so straightforward about strategy, that it is boring and dry and miserable to do things like that. But they don't understand that a strategy really is like a playground. So when your kids are telling you to go, they're going to play in the sandbox. Do you care if they take a bucket, if they take the yogurt container, if they take the white shovel, the blue shovel, the green rake? You don't really care. For all you know, they can take their hands and dig around. And so strategy is very much like that. We create the sandbox, but what you do in the sandbox, or what you're building in the sandbox, how much time you want to spend there, that is really entirely up to you. And so when I work with people, they typically end up understanding much clearer where they want to go. And then we map out the strategy that helps them to get there. Okay. And then we boost their authority so that they can become the expert in their field.
Got you. A couple really neat things that you keyed on. I want to start with the sandbox analogy. And what stands out to me right away, and what I love about that is the whole idea of allowing people to exercise their own creativity, right? And when you leave people to their own volition to do what they think and what they come up with, I think the results are much more long lasting. Is that fair to say?
Well, the saying always is, if you don't know where you're going, any way will get you there. Okay. So, this is like another example I give, like when if you're a skier or a snowboarder or a hiker and you look at the top of the mountain, there is a couple different ways you can get up to that mountain. Yep. So you can say, I want to go to the mountain. And then that's right. So you're just going to talk about going to the mountain. Right. All right. That's great. So are you going to actually travel to the mountain? All right. So that's the first step. So you're going to get a hotel at the bottom of the mountain. That's really good. Then you're going to get your equipment. That's even better. And then you're going to start. But what's your skill level? I mean, is it going to be the easy route? Can you take the steep route? I mean, what's your conditioning? Are you ready? Do you even want to go all the way to the top where you're a little scaredy cat? And, and when you're like all the way at the top, you go, holy smokes, maybe I'm a little afraid of heights. Right. So it's about mapping out the path so that you have a clarity of how you're going to get there. Mm. So oftentimes what happens is that people say, I want to be very successful. I make a lot of money. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
Is that $50,000? Is that $500,000? Is that $5 million? Oh, well, $5 million. That would be nice. Yeah, that would be really great. Well, how are you going to get there? Right. You know what? The thing that I do is really everybody needs it. Well, what's your conversion rate? I don't know. All right. So let's say you have a typical conversion rate. You put a product out, you do your thing, and now 1 in 100 buys or 3 in 100 buy. So in order for you to make $5 million on a $1 product, you need to have 5 million sales. Now we just determined that you have 1 in 100 sales. So now you need to take the number 5 million times 100. That's how you get to your goal. Oh, that's nuts. Well, that's just what you said.
And I love that process that you go through, because it really is an exercise of being very clear and very defined on what it is you're looking to accomplish, and asking questions that it sounds like a lot of times people haven't really thought about or considered.
No, most people go and they say, I want a good relationship. Great. What's it look like? I don't know. I want to drive a nice car. Well, how much money can you spend? Well, I mean, it would be really nice to drive whatever the 5 Series BMW or the Model Y Tesla, whatever that might be. Okay. Well, what are you doing right now to make the money to get the car? I don't know. So, so it's always this like wishful thinking. It's like, in manifestation, and the reason I talk about this with you today, in manifestation, it's just like, I want you to have all of that, but you have to also realize there's an action that needs to be taken.
Right. As opposed to, thinking, wishing, hoping, praying, but not doing anything.
I mean, praying is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm all in with praying, but God
action though to it, right?
Right. I mean, even when you read the Bible, I mean, if I remember this correctly, it says, go spread the word. It's an action. It didn't say sit on your couch and watch Netflix while you think about spreading the word. It says you actually need to physically leave your home and tell other people about this.
That's right. So so we are still incumbent. It is incumbent on us that there's some work that we need to do, as opposed to that hopeful one day it'll happen.
Yes.
I mean, that stuff's for the movies, right? That's not real life. And I think if it's something that you want, you can, so we're talking about praying. I mean, so you can pray for maybe the strength or the endurance or the wisdom to make those choices, but you still have to do something.
Yes. And what you have to do is in direct relationship to what you want. I've been watching the Tour de France.
Okay.
Now, up until I watched this Netflix documentary on the Tour de France, I thought it was the most boring sport ever. Like ever. Then when I watched the documentary, I realized it's all strategy. Now you have my attention.
Gotcha.
And as I've been watching it, and now I'm addicted to it. And so I realize now that when you watch this sport, these guys look like they're barely 100 pounds, like a little wind can blow them over, like they're little crispy, thin nothings. They're the top athletes in the world that are running basically 21 marathons of over 100 miles a day in a row. I mean, that's that sport, right? I mean, the fittest athletes on the planet, in my opinion. And then you can tell, like you watch and you go like, this has to hurt. Like this has to hurt.
Right.
And you can see it in their face. It's like a machine. It's a high performance machine. And their mind just completely overrides their screaming body. It just does, right? They just don't even think about it. They're so in this performance thing. And so for us, it's the same thing, that we need to put ourselves into this mindset of, I'd rather watch a spy show where stuff blows up. Okay. The world is in order. The bad guys get caught. Things blow up. I'm entertained. I can go to sleep. Everything is good.
Right.
Is that the best spend of my time? If I say I want to get to the 5 million, or should I be finding my 5 million buyers? Or maybe if 5 million buyers at $1 is a little ridiculous, maybe I need to do $1 million product, and I only need to find 5 buyers. Boom, mic drop.
There you go.
So that's, I think, how we need to look at this. And I want people to just get very clear. I can architect anything, but you need to have the clarity to figure out what it is that we're architecting.
Oh, so important. Yeah, that's so important, and I'm glad that you made that point. You know, it's because without it, then where are you going? Really, it's a question. Where do you think you're going, right? If you don't have that, and you know, I think it's really neat that, you know, you talk about, you know, your super skill. It's helping people create that executable strategy to get to where they need to be, and I think without that, it's the equivalent of spinning your wheels, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, 100%. Because then what happens is, then I say, I want to make $250,000.
Right.
And then I try really hard. Okay. What's that entail, the trying really hard? Well, I build my website. Well, how's your website going to get you leads? Well, I have to build it and then they'll come. Okay, fair enough. So now your website's finished. How are you going to get leads? The website's not working. People are not coming to the website.
Right.
Well, it's because you're against 10 billion other websites in the world. So how do you get traffic? You're going to run ads. Oh, that's too expensive. Are you going networking? I don't have time for that. That's too early for me. How are you going to get traffic? Are you going to go on podcasts? Are you going to speak? How are you going to get traffic? How are you going to tell people about you? I just don't understand. The website's not working. I got to have to redo the website because it's not giving me any traffic. So I think that we are also very easily distracted by the squirrel that, you know, gets our attention, as long as we don't have to actually do the work. And the work is pick up the phone, make the phone call, send the email, check in with them, follow up, do what needs to be done, get your follow-up system in order, call, ask for the close, have a product to sell. I had something very interesting. I talked to, I was on a podcast interview, and then I asked this lady, I said, so how are you doing financially? And she says, well, I have to pay my mortgage and I have $500 in my bank account. I'm like, how is this even possible? I said, well, what are you selling? She said, I don't have a product. I said, what? You like, the words wouldn't even come out properly. I said, right. So you're telling me that you have a podcast Like you spending money and time and energy on creating a podcast, and people love your idea and they all like you and they think you're amazing and you have nothing to sell. Does this sound funny to you?
I want to laugh, but yeah, I would love, honestly, I would love to just sit there with some popcorn as you're going through one of these sessions, taking it, because it's so entertaining to hear you ask these real questions. I know we're making light of it, but it's to go. I think it's such an important exercise to go through. It really truly is, right? You're digging deeper beyond the surface, beyond the "I'd like to do this one day" to, well, how can you do that one day?
Yes. I'll give you another example. Actually, something that happened earlier today. So I was on a podcast,
okay,
and the gentleman had been laid off, and now he has taken on a ministry, like literally taken on the ministry, and is a pastor.
okay.
And so as I'm listening to him, I said, "You think this is two different things that you're doing?" And he says, "Is it not?" And I said to him, "Can I ask you a question? Do you think that when you heard the voice of God, who told you to take on this ministry, that God did that so you have less?"
Got it.
Because it's not possible.
Right.
Because that's not how God works. God says, "Go do the job that I'm giving you." Right. And it's not sitting there and saying like, "Well, I'm taking on this ministry and now I'm going to be, I'm going to be living off nothing for the rest of my life." I said, "Did you ever think about that you did this and then God put this in front of you so you can combine those two and use that skill to actually build this into a much larger extent?" He hadn't even thought about it. And so I think that when we are in these moments of pressure, which is where I'm getting it with this, when we are in this moment of this discomfort, where, and on whether or not your listeners believe in God or spirit or universe or whatever they want to believe in. But whenever we get into these pressure cookers, it means that where you are at right now just got too small for who you are. And so the answer to this is not become smaller. The answer to this is break the cocoon.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's not to think small, and so often what happens, and Beate, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So often is we make ourselves small, whether we do it because we're fearful, whether we don't want to offend others, whether we don't want to come off as being boastful or whatever. But I oftentimes continue to talk about the idea of putting our best foot forward. So if your skill is this thing, then use that thing and don't make it small, and don't minimize it because of fear of what others might think about you, because you're not living your true audacious self if you do that.
Yes, I think you touched on a couple of things here that are important. So number one, I think if people would understand how to be authentically or really themselves, they probably would do that more often. Mm-hmm. But it's very difficult to get yourself into a spot where you're actually okay with yourself, because we hear always what other people told us how to do. Your mom who told you that to not get in trouble, or why do you always get in trouble? Or why you're so lazy, you're not living up to your potential, or good girls should be seen but not heard. And, my mom told me things like, men don't like women like you. Do you always have to be like that? Never mind, I'm the most successful in our family, but irrespective, when I found my now partner, she said to me, "Well, I'm so glad for you that you finally found someone." It's just like this thing. So what do you do with this information? Mm-hmm. So what we do is we hear the pieces that are supporting the story that we're already running in our own head.
Right.
So if I grew up and I was told that I'm not lovable, then to no surprise, finding true love was a challenge for me. And so when I did because I had to overcome all these limitations, because, my pattern really wasn't that that I didn't find love. I did find love, but it wasn't the right man for me because they still were telling me that I wasn't good enough, because that's what I heard. It wasn't until I let that go that I could find, this one true love. And it's the same thing in business growth. So if you're out there and you say it's difficult, you just created that because there's a story that you're telling yourself that it is perceived as difficult. But if somebody like me has sold a business to Bill Gates and made millions of dollars, now you actually are talking to someone or listening to somebody who's done this. So if it's possible for me, then it must be possible in general. If it's possible in general, then it must be possible for everybody, right? Fine. So now with that, the question isn't, is it possible? The question is, how can you make it possible for yourself? And so the story or the voice that keeps circulating in our head just wants you to remain where you are at, no matter how much where you are at sucks. So the first and foremost thing to get to become who you are is to stop listening to this voice and saying, is this true? Is this true that I'm not lovable? Is this true that making money is hard? Because I know a lot of people that make a fortune and it is not difficult for them.
Yeah. I just very much love the point you touched on with respect to the stories we tell ourselves, right? And so what do we believe of ourselves? What do we think about ourselves? How do we see us in the world? All of those things have the ability to shape our future actions as a result of that, right? It starts in the mind and moves forward. So if your mind, the stories are, I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy, or whatever, I can't start a podcast, then you'll never ever do it.
Yes, exactly. And then if you want to do something, then you need to learn from somebody who's done this before. So you know all the shortcuts. Because the other thing I always tell everybody, Audley, is that there is no award at the end of your life for having done everything on your own. And you know why? Because nobody's going to be at your funeral because you did everything by yourself. So life is about a continuous quest of learning. And it is about bringing people in that can get you to where you want to go faster, because at the end of the day, it's time or money. You pay either way.
Yes, it's true. Very true. You talked earlier about growing your authority. I wonder if you can expand on that a bit further and perhaps explain our audience why it's so important to be seen as an authority in your field.
Yes. So let's clarify one thing first. Authority is not influencer, and it's not celebrity.
Okay.
So people generally cite Gary Vee. And Gary Vee is the guy whose business model is to be a celebrity, not an influencer and not an authority. Because Gary Vee has an opinion on everything: vodka, crypto, concerts, people being laid off, leadership. He has an opinion on everything.
Yes.
I still, I do business models for a living. I still don't know what his business model is. It drives me crazy. So authority is when you become the expert in your niche or in your industry. And that's different because when I scroll through my Instagram feed, it goes like this: 5 things, scroll. Okay. The 2 tips, scroll. Okay. The 1 thing, scroll. Here's the thing, scroll. Talking heads who immediately go into the pitch, who nobody has time for it. And there it is.
Right.
The cat with the snow goggles in a backpack, the only cat that likes skiing. Now I'm spending 7 minutes watching that video of the cat skiing, and I feel very entertained. Now that cat is going viral.
Right.
So tell me how the person that creates this as a business owner who happens to like skiing and apparently cats and got their cat to go skiing, how is this helping them to get business?
Right.
It's making the cat famous. But I did not. Actually, as a matter of fact, now that I said this myself, I'm thinking about this. I have no idea what the people that are posting these videos do, because all I'm interested in is the cat. I really dig the cat. So influence and authority are different. So now if I were to use this cat because I am representing a goggle manufacturer for ski goggles,
Right.
okay. Now I want that. It's like, we love our goggles so much that we found the only cat that likes to ski and we gave her our own goggles. Right. Now we got a point. I think people don't think this through.
Right.
If you were to use this as a outlet to build your authority, what would you have to say that people consistently are being reminded of your message over and over and over and over and over again?
I like that. I like that. Because again, as the authority, right, people will come to you for not just, what you can give them, but your advice and your expert knowledge on a particular topic or field. And I think when you do that, that's how you stand out, which is very much part of what you want for individuals. You want them to stand out because that's how you become recognized as the go-to person.
Yes, you cannot be recognized unless you're an authority in your field. And the other part I want to add to that is we see this a lot with people that are unclear what their value proposition or the differentiation factor is. They're a coach, they're a consultant, they're an expert. And then you go, well, what kind of coach are you? I'm a life coach. Okay. There's no other question to be asked.
Right.
I'm a business coach. No other question to be asked. Okay. Well, I don't need a business coach right now. I'm good. But if I say I'm a growth architect, then people go, oh, I've never heard that before. What does a growth architect do? Well, I help visionaries and thought leaders to grow their authority and scale their impact. Oh, wow. How do you grow people's authority? So now we are in a conversation because I have a value differentiation, but I am a business strategist. So if I were to say a business strategy growth architect, you see how different that is. Or people even say I'm a plumber, or I'm a roofer, or I'm an electrician. Well, now you sound like everybody else.
Right.
Now, if I have a choice between an electrician, and an electrician, and an electrician, where will my mind go to price? Because if I think I get the same thing, then I'm going to go and pick the least expensive provider. And that's how people shoot themselves in the foot all the time.
Right. Focus on themselves and their own expertise. And that's how you make a difference. That's what I'm hearing from you loud and clear.
Yes.
There was 3 elements of establish yourself as authority. Can you sort of touch on that?
Yes. So the 3 elements, the essential framework elements are, number 1, of course, no surprise to everybody, strategy. And without the strategy, I don't even know how to explain that. It's like, you can, of course, show up every day and work, but without a strategy of the actions that you need to be taking to get to a particular point, you're spinning and you're looping and looping and looping in a perpetual infinity loop. The second thing is growth. You need to be clear about what is the growth aspect of where you want to go. Like, how do we are creating this element of growth? And are you going for incremental or for quantum leaps? Because that's a different strategy for either one of those. And I don't judge, sometimes I work with people that want 10, 20% of growth rate because they're afraid that if they do a quantum leap, then they don't have time for their families. That's fine by me. Sometimes I talk to people that want quantum leaps, and we are designing quantum leaps. Right. And then finally, the third element is authority that is consistently building your authority so that other people know that you are the go-to expert in your industry.
Right. That's it. That's that. Although there's always room to grow and develop. That's the top of the mountain. That's where you want to be. Like you don't want to necessarily stop at the top, but certainly that's a great place to be in terms of again establishing yourself as an authority. I guess for me, when the more I really think about strategies, and honestly, I got to thank you for having this dialogue, because it's not that, even myself, I'm thinking it's not that I didn't know strategy is important, but the nuts and bolts of what you do is just so critical. And it can't go without saying, because if you're not having someone like you as a growth architect asking these real questions, as individuals so deeply involved in things, you may not be able to see it and understand that it's an important question that you're asking.
It's always like that. I work with a high performance coach. Mm-hmm. And, there was a point in my life 2 years ago where I was very angry. And then she says, well, we need to look into what the anger is where it's coming from. It's like, I'm not angry. So you have to have somebody who calls you on your stuff. I mean, come on. It's like when you're coaching, right, a football team or soccer team, or the tennis team, and then the kids are coming and they said, no, Mr. Stevenson, I totally did my training. And you go like, no, you didn't, because you didn't practice the pitch. You're doing the same thing with the elbow that you did last week, right? You knew exactly what. Come on, be honest with me. Well, maybe I didn't. So you have to have somebody to call you. It's like, look, if you want to go to in the baseball league as a pro pitcher,
right, got
to put the work in. Yeah. I can't do it for you. I can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself. I can only tell you what to do. You're going to have to do the work. But it's like, what's wrong with my pitch? There's nothing wrong with your pitch. Well, it's slower than a snail. And what's the flailing elbow here, right? So I think it's also a mindset piece to have people around you that have permission for you to tell you so you can be better. Yeah. Like sometimes, like I like cooking. I don't love cooking. I like cooking. And I know about myself, I'm not the best cook, but I'm the fastest. And so ever so often, I really succeed in making an unbelievably mediocre meal. And so I can either be upset that my partner says, oh, that's definitely in the top 3 of your mediocre meals. Right. Or I can crack up and I said, isn't it absolutely terrible? I'm glad something's on the table, but I take no pride in this. Do I need to be offended about the truth? I mean, and I just cooked something like, and let me just tell you, it was absolutely horrific. I was surprised how bad it was myself. And so I don't need to defend things that, I mean, what does it matter? He didn't say you're a terrible cook, or please don't go in the kitchen, or everything you do is awful. He says, this meal is god awful. And it was. So then people go like, I will never cook for you if this is how you think me. I'm slaving away, and you haven't cooked in 3 weeks, and I have to do all the work. And then suddenly we go into a whole other thing. So I think the idea, and coaches and consultants are not for everybody. No. But if you want to go somewhere in life, sports, fitness, health, nutrition, brain power, business, any kind of performance relationship, you're going to need a coach. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Wow. It is. Yeah, exactly. It is. That's exactly how it is. How many different strategies are there?
So this is a trick question. Typically, people are having one main strategy for their business.
Okay.
And then we recommend them to break this down in 4 quarterly sub-strategies. Okay. So if I say I want to get to $1 million by the end of the year, and I look at what I have, then what is my quarterly strategy to get there? So my first quarterly strategy may be to grow my podcast and get more people, to listen to. And then my second quarterly strategy may be to say, well, I realize now that the people, when I send them to a website, the websites are not converting, or they are not taking me up on the offer. So I have to fine tune my digital marketing piece. Now, in the third quarter, I may say, well, now that we have this piece together and the websites are converting, we're needing more leads. So now in the third quarter, I may need to run a lead generation strategy. Then I may realize that I'm not selling enough. And now in the fourth quarter, I have a sales and closing strategy, but that's still in the same overall strategy. So you can have multiple strategies running simultaneously as long as there's one main strategy you want to get to.
Yeah, they feed into that bigger picture kind of vision that you're after, right?
Correct.
Absolutely. No, I get it. It makes total sense. And again, the idea of being very deliberate about it is key in all of this. And once you're able to do that, that's awesome. You touched on it earlier, and I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about selling your business to Bill Gates during a recession. I mean, how'd you do that? What does that story look like?
Well, that story really is a harrowing story of 10 years of adversity that includes fires, floods, riots, earthquake, September 11th that wiped out my business in 24 hours, a bad employee who betrayed me and got too close to a key vendor and had a plan to run her own business, which was my business without me. That cost me another $500,000. And then I ended up being in debt. The lawsuit settled and I had nothing and I had to start from all over again. And then I had this idea of building the stock photography syndication for at-home images for celebrities and all these interior and architectural photography database. We did, the covers of the magazines. When you go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you look at the paint brochures and you see the houses with the colors, those were our images. You go to the bank, you see refinance your house with this beautiful home behind, that would be an image that we would be providing. So that was all the work that we did. But I was broke. So I ran up a spiral staircase and in high heels, basically as fast as I could. And then I ended up $135,000 in debt and had to borrow money to pay interest on borrowed money, which is a very bad business strategy.
Yes.
And I was about to file bankruptcy. And then I went to Germany to drum up some business, and my dad had a stroke. Now, my father did not have a stroke. My father had pancreatic cancer and died 6 weeks later. And as we are at the funeral in Germany, my phone rings and I'm being called, and now we're losing the house. I've been just served a notice. And so I came back after I fell to my knees and I yelled at God and I said, if you have a plan, this really is the time to fill me in because I just don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I surrendered. And when I came back, I got a letter from the White House.
Okay.
And in the letter from the White House, which I wrote because my former mother-in-law was really nagging me about this nonstop.
Okay.
Write a letter to the president. He's your president after all. If anybody can help you, it's the president of the United States. Have you written your letter to the Fine. I'm writing this letter so we don't ever have to talk about this. And so when I got the letter from the White House, I was, of course, very grateful that she was so wonderful in constantly reminding me to write this letter. And then that put me in touch with the Small Business Administration, and they looked at the business plan I had written, and they found me a bank that restructured my debt into a 10-year fixed loan that freed up my line of credit. 3 months later, I'm break even. 18 months later, I'm the world leader in my category. And that's how a Bill Gates company came and says, tell us how you do it. I said, nope. You want it? You buy it. They say, how much? I said, millions. They said, fine.
Love it. I love it. That's a great story because it was just driven on the need to get to that better place. And I think sometimes the things that motivate us are big too in this. So as you're working to develop the strategy, I think it's also important to know what motivates you or why you're doing this. Why is this strategy important? What are you going to do when you get there? Those are certainly good questions to ask, I think.
Always. But I think what I learned in this particular story, which may be important to point out as well, is that sometimes these things that are completely irrelevant or that you think are annoying are the opportunities in disguise. would I have not written that letter to the President of the United States, my life would be very different. I mean, it's such a long shot. It's such a, I mean, if you really think about it, it's almost like ridiculous. You say, seriously, that she did what? She wrote what? She wrote a letter to the president. The president never saw that letter. No, of course not. But it put a series of events in motion that had a particular outcome. Now, if I would have gone into the SBA without this letter of the president, I would have been with a guy that would have been, you know, at the entry level. I talked to the second in command for all of Los Angeles County because he also got a letter from the White House. So he goes like, I gotta figure out who this person is that writes a letter to the bloody White House. She should have just called me.
Right.
Right. So these are the things that we need to be paying attention to is what are we missing because we are so unbelievably judgmental?
Yes. Aren't we? We so are. Beyonce, this is so wonderful to chat. I oftentimes at the end of conversations, I think about, you know, the takeaways, what the takeaway is, and without question, the idea of being the authority in your realm, in your field, in your space is so important from a way of standing out. And so I definitely reflect on that. I also would love to hear just your thoughts on trial and error and how important that is. So I would imagine, you know, as much as we put in our, you know, everything in our plan, we think we cover all our bases. You know, undoubtedly there will be something that comes up. You know, we like to be able to plan for everything, but sometimes we can't. So I wonder if you could sort of talk about the introduction of how these unforeseen or unexpected things can weave into our plan and help it work.
Yeah, so I have a very simple philosophy on this, and I compare it, you know, and I typically tell a story about this. So I want you to think about this as trial and error, that you have a GPS in your car, and for about a month now, it keeps telling you to update the GPS software because there's a new version out there, but you ignore it because you're busy. When you're driving, you need the GPS. You don't have the 10 minutes it takes to download. You're always in a rush. Inevitably, the day comes. The route that you normally take, there's construction, and they're building that freeway after all. So now you're going to get out of the car. You're going to throw yourself on the pavement in front of the guy with the stop sign. And you're going to say, I'm the worst driver in the world. This is horrible. I shouldn't be driving. This is ridiculous. My car sucks. I'm going to sell my car. I'm giving up. This is just too bloody difficult. I can't believe they're doing this to me. I have a right to take this street. What's wrong with people? Why didn't they tell me personally? You know, suddenly they're doing this. I mean, you know, talking about this for years. So today's you're not doing any of that.
Right.
None of this. You go in your car and you're going to do this. You're going to wave at the guy with the stop sign, and you go and you touch your head and you say, should I have updated the GPS? And you find another way because you know that the destination is still there. So if you look at failure from that perspective, that there's a nice gentleman or lady in a hard hat with a yellow outfit with a reflective stripe and the stop sign ever so gently pointing, says, this is the wrong way. Just wave, find the other way.
Find the other way. Those are great words. I love it. I love it because it's so powerful in terms of what we can do for ourselves. That is, find the other way. So, you know, I oftentimes use an analogy. We're on our path and there's a boulder that is blocking that way. Well, you know, we need to find a way, whether we go up, under, around, or through, because on the other side is where the greatness lies. We just got to put in that effort. We talked at the beginning very much of that action, right? So I'm not praying that this boulder disappears or magically gets airlifted out of my way. I'm seeking ways to get to the other side.
100%, yes.
Amazing. Beyonce, this is a wonderful chat. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to chit chat like this. For our listeners that want to learn more about you or your work, where can we send them?
Yes. So there's a couple of things you can do. So if you are a business owner and you are recognizing that maybe you do have a business growth blocker, go to our quiz on how to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is and go to growthblockerquiz.com. If you've heard something where you go, well, maybe I should have a conversation, then go to uncoverysession.com. Make sure you mention the podcast and this show so we can give you priority, and schedule an uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors so we can help you figure out what's going on with your business and where we can take that. And while we're at it, I will definitely recommend all of you, wherever you're listening to this podcast right now, please go and give Audley's podcast a 5-star rating and a comment, because that's what brings up the search engine results. Yeah. And share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were sharing today.
Oh, thank you for that, Beate. I really appreciate that. And you are right. These are things that help podcasts grow. And as much as I can speak for myself, do it as a labor of love. And it really is, because I have that, that message out there we want to spread. We do appreciate anything you can help anything people can do to help the platform grow. So thank you for that. Really appreciate the plug. Appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much, and keep up the fantastic work, and congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to Beate for being here and leaving us with some remarkable insights around being an authority and the importance of us breaking out of that cocoon to be our bold, audacious selves. If you'd like to connect with her, or again, her contact information in the show notes, and make mention of the podcast to receive priority access. So again, Beate, thank you for doing this. It was an absolute pleasure. When I think back to the conversation we had, I appreciate so much of what she had to share with us. But if there's just one thing I take from our chat, it would have to be this. Life is a journey filled with countless possibilities and opportunities. Each one of us possesses the power to shape our own destiny and determine the direction of our lives that we take. However, too often we find ourselves drifting along, letting circumstances or other people dictate the course of our lives. It's time to recognize the crucial importance of taking ownership for the direction of where we go. By embracing personal accountability, we can unlock our true potential, foster growth, and create a life that aligns with our values and aspirations. At the core of taking ownership for our lives lies the acknowledgement of the power of choice. We have the ability to make decisions and take actions that can shape our future. Whether it's choosing a career path, cultivating relationships, pursuing personal growth, or finding meaning and purpose, our choices hold immense significance. By realizing that we're not passengers, but rather active participants in our lives, we empower ourselves to make intentional decisions that align with our goals. Taking ownership for the direction of our lives requires embracing responsibility for our actions and outcomes. It means accepting that we have the power to create change and acknowledge that setbacks and failures are opportunities for growth. When we take responsibility, we shift from a victim mentality to an empowered mindset. We become proactive problem solvers, seeking solutions and learning from our experiences. This mindset enables personal growth, resilience, and the ability to adapt to life's challenges. Another crucial aspect of taking ownership for our lives is setting meaningful goals. By defining what we truly want to achieve, we gain clarity and focus. Setting goals propels us forward, providing us with a sense of purpose and direction. When we take ownership of our lives, we actively pursue them, breaking them down into actionable steps and holding ourselves accountable for their attainment. This process encourages self-motivation, perseverance, and a sense of accomplishment as we witness our progress and achievements. When we take ownership for the direction of our lives, we are actively involved in creating a life of fulfillment. We no longer passively wait for happiness to find us. Instead, we take intentional steps to foster a sense of fulfillment and contentment. This may involve pursuing our passions, nurturing meaningful relationships, practicing self-care, and seeking personal and professional growth. By taking ownership, we become architects of our own happiness, designing a life that reflects our values, aspirations, and unique definition of success. Taking ownership for the direction of our lives is a transformative mindset that empowers us to shape our own destiny. By recognizing the power of our choice, embracing responsibility, setting meaningful goals, and actively creating a life of fulfillment, we can unlock our true potential and embark on an audacious journey of personal growth and self-discovery. So let's embrace personal accountability and seize the opportunity to shape our audacious future. We've sadly come to the end of another episode of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. And as always, I send my thanks and appreciation to all those lovers of audaciousness for their ongoing and tremendous support. I continue to say you are the folks that help this podcast move and keep going and growing. And so for that, I say thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.